The crimson warning light pulsed across the bridge of the ethereal dominance as Commander Tekva Morlane stared at readings that defied every principle of galactic taxonomy. What should have been a routine Class 7 planetary assessment had just become something else entirely, something that made his tertiary heart skip in synchronized terror. "Run the scan again, Operative Nalthris," Morlane commanded, his voice carrying the authority of 3 centuries, commanding survey fleets across 17 sectors. The bioluminescent patches along his neck flickered with barely contained anxiety as he watched his chief analyst's 4 eyes dart between holographic displays that shouldn't exist. Nalthris's manipulator appendages trembled as she interfaced with the ship's quantum consciousness. "Commander, the results are identical. Sol 3, what these inhabitants call Earth, is generating energy signatures consistent with a Class 15 planetary designation." The bridge fell silent, except for the rhythmic hum of the ship's displacement drives. Every crew member understood the implications. Class 15 worlds were theoretical constructs, mathematical impossibilities discussed only in the deepest archives of the Confederation's strategic planning divisions. They were worlds so militarized, so inherently hostile to outside interference, that contact protocols didn't even exist for them. "That's impossible," Morlane whispered, though his confidence wavered like a dying star. "Our preliminary surveys classified this planet as primitive. Stone tools, basic agriculture, rudimentary social structures. The inhabitants haven't even achieved fusion technology." Leucenia tactician Vexandra Quelthon rose from her command cradle, her exoskeleton clicking against the crystalline deck plating. Her species, the Kitharan, had evolved on a world where deception meant survival, and her instincts now screamed warnings that her rational mind couldn't yet process. "Commander, with respect, when was our last comprehensive survey of this system?" Morlane's secondary brain accessed the ship's historical databases through his neural interface. 847 standard cycles ago, conducted by Survey Fleet Designation Omicron 7 under the command of Admiral Hayex Thul Mordain. "Your predecessor," Vexandra observed, her compound eyes reflecting the holographic displays in fractured patterns. "What were his findings?" The database response materialized in Morlane's consciousness like ice water through his circulatory system. Sol 3 was classified as uninhabitable. Toxic atmosphere, unstable geological activity, hostile native life forms. The system was marked for quarantine and excluded from all future expansion protocols. Nalthris's analysis tendrils extended deeper into the ship's sensory network, pulling data streams that painted an increasingly disturbing picture. "Commander, if I may, there's something else. The electromagnetic emissions from Sol 3 aren't random. They're structured, coded, deliberately modulated across multiple frequency ranges simultaneously." "What kind of structures?" Morlane demanded. "The kind that suggest they've been listening to our communications for at least several decades." The revelation hit the bridge crew like a gravity wave. Species across the galaxy had achieved interstellar communication capabilities, but intercepting and decoding Confederation transmissions required technology that simply didn't exist on primitive worlds. The encryption protocols alone were beyond the capabilities of civilizations that hadn't achieved quantum consciousness integration. "Show me the surface scans," Morlane ordered, his voice dropping to the tone he reserved for combat situations. The main holographic display erupted into 3-dimensional life, revealing Sol 3 in stunning detail. At first glance, it appeared exactly as their preliminary reports had indicated. A blue-green world with scattered landmasses, primitive settlements, and what appeared to be early industrial development in isolated pockets. But as Nalthris enhanced the resolution and applied alternative scanning methodologies, the image transformed into something far more sinister. "These aren't random settlements," she whispered, her vocal cords producing harmonics of disbelief. "Look at the positioning. Every major population center is positioned at precisely calculated intervals to maximize sensor coverage and communication efficiency. This isn't natural development. This is strategic planning on a planetary scale. Vexandra's tactical implants automatically began calculating firing solutions and defensive positions, a survival reflex from her warrior heritage. "Commander, those aren't primitive roads connecting their settlements. Look at the underground infrastructure." The display shifted to subsurface scanning, revealing a network of tunnels, conduits, and chambers that stretched beneath every continent. The construction was too sophisticated, too precisely engineered to be the work of a primitive civilization. More disturbing still were the energy readings emanating from deep beneath the planet's crust. "Those are fusion reactors," Morlane said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Dozens of them, maybe hundreds." "Not fusion, sir," Nalthris corrected, her analysis complete. "Quantum cascade reactors. The energy output signatures are consistent with technology that our own civilization developed only within the last century." The implications hung in the recycled atmosphere of the bridge like a toxic cloud. Quantum cascade reactors required theoretical physics that took most species millennia to develop, assuming they survived their own technological adolescence. Yet here was a world that appeared primitive on the surface, while generating power through methods that rivaled their own most advanced systems. "There's more," Nalthris continued, her voice growing stronger as scientific curiosity overcame fear. "I'm detecting massive metallic structures in the planet's oceans. They're camouflaged using adaptive light-bending technology, but our quantum resonance scanners can penetrate the illusion." The holographic display shifted again, revealing underwater installations of staggering complexity, structures that resembled military installations rather than research facilities, with weapon emplacements that could theoretically engage targets in orbital space. "How is this possible?" Morlane demanded. "Our intelligence networks monitor every species in the galaxy. There are protocols, safeguards, early warning systems. A civilization doesn't achieve this level of technological sophistication without someone noticing." Vexandra's tactical implants were now operating at maximum capacity, analyzing potential threat vectors and defensive capabilities. What they revealed made her exoskeleton shiver with involuntary fear responses. "Commander, I believe someone did notice. I believe that's why Admiral Hayexthul Mordain classified this system as uninhabitable 8 centuries ago." "You're suggesting a cover-up?" "I'm suggesting that your predecessor discovered exactly what we're discovering now, and someone made the decision that the galaxy wasn't ready for this information." Morlane's command training had prepared him for first contact with hostile species, for navigation through quantum storm systems, for dealing with pirates and rebels, and the 1,000 dangers that lurked between the stars. But nothing had prepared him for the possibility that his own government had been systematically lying about one of the most potentially dangerous worlds in the known galaxy. "Nalthris, I want you to access the classified archives. Override authorization. Morlane Alpha 77 Prime. I want to know everything about Survey Fleet Omicron 7 and what really happened during that expedition." The analyst's manipulator appendages moved with desperate efficiency through holographic interfaces that responded to her bioelectric field. What she discovered in the classified databases would haunt her dreams for the remainder of her natural lifespan. "Commander," she whispered, "Survey Fleet Omicron 7 consisted of 12 vessels and over 3,000 personnel. According to official records, they were destroyed in a navigational accident while conducting routine stellar cartography in an uncharted nebula." "And the unofficial records?" "There are no unofficial records, sir. Every trace of their actual mission has been purged from our databases except for the final classification of Sol 3 as uninhabitable. But there's something else. Admiral Hayek's Thulmor filed his final report using emergency protocols that are only employed when a survey team has discovered something that poses an existential threat to the Confederation itself. The weight of that revelation settled over the bridge crew like a funeral shroud. Emergency protocols of that classification were reserved for discoveries that could fundamentally alter the balance of power in the galaxy. Ancient alien artifacts, unstable stellar phenomena, or civilizations possessing technology that could threaten the very existence of interstellar society. What kind of existential threat? Morlane asked, though part of him already knew the answer. The kind that requires immediate and total quarantine, Vexandra replied, her tactical systems now painting the Sol system in shades of crimson warning. The kind that suggests we're not dealing with a primitive civilization that somehow developed advanced technology. We're dealing with a civilization that has been deliberately concealing its true capabilities for centuries. Morlane stared at the holographic representation of Sol 3, watching as their scanners revealed layer upon layer of deception. The primitive settlements that masked underground facilities, the simple roads that concealed high-capacity transportation networks, the apparently random distribution of population centers that formed a perfectly coordinated planetary defense grid. They've been watching us, he realized, not just intercepting our communications. They've been studying us, learning our capabilities, understanding our weaknesses for centuries. Commander, Nalthris interrupted, her voice tight with barely controlled terror, I'm detecting approximately 47 artificial objects in various orbital trajectories around Sol 3. They're using the same adaptive camouflage technology as the underwater installations. 47? 47 that we can detect with our current scanning capabilities. The actual number could be significantly higher. Morlane felt the familiar sensation of his military training taking control of his thought processes, pushing fear aside in favor of tactical analysis. Are they weapons platforms? Unknown, but the power signatures suggest they're capable of generating considerable energy output, enough to pose a threat to capital ships at extreme range. The revelation transformed their understanding of the strategic situation from reconnaissance mission to potential combat engagement. 47 orbital installations, each potentially capable of engaging Confederation vessels, represented a level of military preparation that defied every assumption about Sol 3's technological capabilities. This changes everything, Morlane whispered. No, Commander, Vexandra replied, her compound eyes reflecting light patterns that indicated deep tactical thinking. This explains everything. Why Sol 3 was quarantined, why the records were classified, why an entire survey fleet disappeared without explanation. They destroyed Survey Fleet Omicron 7, or captured them, or worse, convinced them to join whatever conspiracy has been concealing Sol 3's true nature from the rest of the galaxy. Why the possibility that members of the Confederation military might have been compromised by Sol 3 inhabitants opened strategic implications that made Morlane's tertiary heart skip irregular rhythms. If the humans, for that was what they called themselves according to their intercepted communications, possessed capabilities that could subvert Confederation personnel, then their threat assessment required immediate escalation to the highest levels of military command. Nthris, prepare a priority transmission to Sector Command, classification level Ultra Crimson. Inform them that we have discovered a potential Class 15 hostile civilization and require immediate military consultation. Sir, respectfully, what if Sector Command already knows? The question hung in the bridge atmosphere like a quantum bomb waiting to detonate. If the cover-up of Sol 3's true nature extended beyond the historical archives, if current command structures were complicit in concealing the existence of a potentially hostile advanced civilization, then their current mission might be something other than the routine survey they believed it to be. What are you suggesting, analyst? I'm suggesting that our orders to conduct a comprehensive survey of Sol-3 after 8 centuries of quarantine might not be coincidental. I'm suggesting that someone in Confederation Command wants to know whether the threat that Admiral Hayexthul Mordain identified has grown stronger or weaker over time. And if it's grown stronger, then we may not be here to conduct a survey, Commander. We may be here to serve as the opening probe for something much larger. The realization that their mission might be part of a broader strategic plan, possibly one that included military action against Sol-3, transformed Morlane's understanding of their situation from scientific expedition to advance reconnaissance. The distinction carried implications that made his command training seem inadequate for the challenges they faced. "Continue scanning," he ordered. "I want to know everything about this planet and its inhabitants before we make any decisions about how to proceed." What they discovered over the following standard hours would reshape their understanding not just of Sol-3, but of humanity itself. The humans, as their intercepted communications revealed, were not the primitive bipeds that preliminary surveys had indicated. They possessed a technological civilization that rivaled Confederation capabilities in many areas and exceeded them in others. Their planetary defense network included weapon systems that could engage targets at interstellar ranges. Their underground facilities contained manufacturing capabilities that could produce military equipment in quantities sufficient to supply multiple star systems. Most disturbing of all was the evidence that humanity had been aware of the Confederation's existence for far longer than anyone had believed possible. Their communication intercepts included detailed intelligence assessments of Confederation military capabilities, strategic vulnerabilities, and political structures. They knew about species compositions, territorial boundaries, and resource distribution across 17 sectors of space. "How long have they known about us?" Morlane asked, as the data streams painted an increasingly comprehensive picture of human intelligence-gathering operations. "Based on the sophistication of their intercepts and the depth of their analysis, I estimate they've been monitoring Confederation activities for at least 2 centuries, Nalthris replied. "Possibly longer. 2 centuries of intelligence gathering while maintaining the illusion of primitive development." "It's more than that, Commander. Look at this." The holographic display shifted to show mathematical models that Nalthris had extracted from human data transmissions. The equations were elegant, complex, and dealt with theoretical physics that the Confederation's most advanced research institutions were only beginning to explore. "They understand quantum consciousness integration," Nalthris whispered. "Not just the basic principles, they understand it better than we do. These calculations suggest they've developed applications that our own scientists consider impossible." "Such as?" "Faster-than-light communication without quantum entanglement pairs, gravitational manipulation on a planetary scale, consciousness transfer across interstellar distances." Each revelation added layers of complexity to an already incomprehensible situation. Humanity possessed technological capabilities that suggested they were not merely an advanced civilization concealing their development. They were a civilization that had achieved breakthroughs in fundamental physics that placed them at the forefront of galactic technological development. "There's something else," Vexandra added, her tactical implants processing strategic implications at maximum capacity. "Their defensive preparations aren't random. They're specifically designed to counter Confederation military doctrine." "How is that possible?" "Because they've studied our combat methods, our ship designs, our tactical preferences, and our strategic weaknesses for centuries. They know how we fight before we know we're fighting." The strategic implications were staggering. Military doctrine developed over millennia of interstellar warfare, refined through conflicts with dozens of species across multiple galaxies, had apparently been analyzed and countered by a civilization that the Confederation didn't even acknowledge existed. Show me their defensive capabilities in detail, Morlane ordered. What the tactical analysis revealed made him question every assumption about humanity's place in the galactic hierarchy. Sol 3's defensive systems included orbital weapons platforms that could generate coherent energy beams capable of destroying capital ships at ranges that exceeded standard engagement distances. Their underground facilities contained manufacturing capabilities that could produce military hardware at rates that would require multiple star systems to match. Their ocean installations housed what appeared to be submarine fleets equipped with weapons that could engage spacecraft in orbit. Most concerning of all were the indications that humanity possessed interstellar travel capabilities that they had successfully concealed from all Confederation monitoring systems. The energy signatures detected in the outer regions of the Sol system suggested that human vessels regularly departed and returned to their home system without triggering any of the early warning networks that monitored space traffic across 17 sectors. They have ships out there, Morlane realized. Human vessels operating in Confederation space without our knowledge. It's worse than that, Vexandra replied. If their intelligence gathering is as sophisticated as the evidence suggests, they may have infiltrated Confederation installations directly. Infiltration. Physical infiltration. Human agents operating within our command structures, our research facilities, our strategic planning divisions. The level of intelligence they possess about our capabilities and weaknesses suggests access to information that would be available only to personnel with the highest security clearances. The possibility that human agents had penetrated the highest levels of Confederation command opened security implications that transformed their current mission from reconnaissance to potential counterintelligence operation. If humanity possessed detailed knowledge of Confederation strategic planning, military capabilities, and political structures, then every decision made by High Command might have been influenced by human intelligence operations. Contact Sector Command immediately, Morlane ordered. Priority Alpha Ultra classification. Inform them that we have identified a potential security breach of unprecedented scope and require immediate consultation with Intelligence Division Command. Sir, what if Intelligence Division Command is compromised? The question struck at the heart of their predicament. If human infiltration had reached the level of Intelligence Division Command, then their current communication might be monitored by the very civilization they were attempting to assess. Every transmission, every scan, every analysis they conducted might be providing humanity with real-time intelligence about Confederation capabilities and intentions. Then, we proceed under the assumption that every action we take is being observed and analyzed by hostile forces, Morlane replied, his command training asserting itself over the growing fear that threatened to paralyze his decision-making processes. We continue our mission, but we do so with the understanding that we are operating in enemy territory. The designation of Sol 3 as enemy territory represented a fundamental shift in their mission parameters. What had begun as routine scientific survey had evolved into military reconnaissance in the face of a potential existential threat to Confederation security. Over the following standard hours, their analysis revealed additional layers of human deception that defied every precedent in Confederation historical archives. Humanity had not simply concealed their technological development. They had actively manipulated Confederation understanding of their capabilities through carefully orchestrated disinformation campaigns that spanned centuries. The primitive settlements that masked underground facilities were not accidental camouflage. They were deliberately constructed facades designed to reinforce Confederation assumptions about human technological limitations. The apparently random distribution of population centers formed defensive networks whose coordination required computational capabilities that exceeded most advanced civilizations. The electromagnetic emissions that had initially appeared to be intercepted communications were actually carefully crafted intelligence feeds designed to provide humanity with real-time information about Confederation activities while revealing nothing about their own capabilities. "They've been playing us," Nalthris whispered as the full scope of human deception became apparent. "For centuries, they've been manipulating our understanding of their civilization while gathering intelligence about ours. To what purpose? Unknown. But the sophistication of their operations suggests long-term strategic planning that extends far beyond simple defensive preparation." "Long-term strategic planning for what?" "For war," Vexandra replied, her tactical systems painting probability matrices that showed human capabilities aligned against Confederation vulnerabilities. "Everything we've discovered suggests they've been preparing for large-scale military conflict with the Confederation for centuries." The revelation transformed their understanding of the strategic situation from potential first contact to imminent military threat. Humanity possessed the technological capabilities, intelligence resources, and strategic planning necessary to pose an existential threat to Confederation dominance in multiple sectors of space. "Sir," Nalthris interrupted, "I'm detecting massive energy buildups from multiple locations across Sol 3. The patterns are consistent with weapons systems charging to full combat readiness." "How many locations?" "Hundreds, Commander, possibly thousands. They're activating defensive systems across the entire planet simultaneously. The coordinated activation of planetary defense systems in response to their presence confirmed humanity's awareness of their mission and their willingness to resist Confederation authority through military force. The speed and scope of their response suggested preparation, training, and coordination that required decades of planning and resource allocation. "They know we're here," Morlane stated. "They've known we were here since we entered the system," Vexandra corrected. "They've been tracking our movements, analyzing our capabilities, and preparing their response for the entire duration of our mission." "Then why haven't they acted against us?" "Because they want us to see exactly what we're seeing. They want us to understand their capabilities, their preparations, their willingness to resist. They're sending a message to the Confederation through us." The realization that their reconnaissance mission had been anticipated and potentially orchestrated by humanity opened strategic implications that made Morlane question every aspect of their situation. If humans possess the capability to track Confederation vessels throughout their approach to Sol 3, then their defensive preparations might extend far beyond planetary boundaries. Scanner readings indicate massive electromagnetic pulse emissions from the outer planets, Nalthris reported. The signatures are consistent with large-scale industrial activity. Industrial activity? Manufacturing facilities, Commander. They're building something in the outer system, and they're building it on a scale that suggests preparation for extended military operations. The evidence painted a picture of humanity as a civilization that had achieved technological and strategic capabilities that placed them among the most advanced species in the galaxy, while maintaining the illusion of primitive development for centuries. Their preparations for military conflict with the Confederation appeared to be nearing completion, and their intelligence operations had provided them with detailed knowledge of Confederation weaknesses and capabilities. "What are our options?" Morlane asked. "Tactically." Vexandra consulted her implants. "Against a planetary defense network of this sophistication, with our current ship configuration, our survival probability in direct engagement is approximately 12%. And strategically, if humanity possesses the capabilities that our analysis suggests, and if they've been preparing for military conflict with the Confederation for centuries, then our strategic options are limited to immediate retreat or negotiation from a position of significant disadvantage. Beyond the admission that a single Confederation survey vessel faced tactical and strategic disadvantages against a supposedly primitive civilization represented a paradigm shift that challenged fundamental assumptions about galactic power structures and military capabilities. There's one other possibility, Nalthris added quietly, which is that we were sent here not to conduct reconnaissance, but to serve as messengers. Someone in Confederation Command may have decided that direct communication with humanity is necessary, and we're here to establish contact. Contact with a civilization that has been hostile to Confederation interests for centuries. Contact with a civilization that has demonstrated technological capabilities that exceed our current understanding and strategic planning, that suggests they pose an existential threat to Confederation dominance. The possibility that their mission was diplomatic rather than military reconnaissance opened new frameworks for understanding their situation, but it also raised questions about command authority and strategic decision-making that made Morlane uncomfortable with the level of information he possessed. If this is a diplomatic mission, why weren't we informed? Because diplomatic contact with a Class 15 civilization requires protocols that don't exist in standard command structures, Vexandra replied. And because the political implications of acknowledging humanity's true capabilities would destabilize every assumption about galactic hierarchy and territorial boundaries. As their analysis continued, the evidence mounted that humanity represented not just a military threat, but a civilization whose very existence challenged the fundamental structures of galactic society. Their technological capabilities suggested independent development that exceeded Confederation achievements in multiple fields. Their intelligence operations demonstrated strategic thinking that outmaneuvered Confederation security measures across multiple centuries. Their military preparations indicated resources, coordination, and planning that rivaled the combined capabilities of multiple star systems. Most disturbing of all was the growing evidence that humanity had been actively shaping Confederation policy and strategic decision-making through intelligence operations that extended far beyond simple information gathering. The level of knowledge they possessed about Confederation capabilities, weaknesses, and internal political structures suggested access to information that would be available only to individuals operating at the highest levels of command authority. "Commander," Nalthris whispered, "I'm detecting incoming transmission from Sol 3. It's directed specifically at our vessel using Confederation communication protocols and encryption methods." "They're contacting us directly?" "Yes, sir. The transmission includes authentication codes that identify the sender as a representative of something called the Terran Strategic Defense Consortium. The formal nature of the communication, combined with the use of Confederation protocols and authentication codes, suggested that humanity possessed not only the technological capability to communicate with Confederation vessels, but detailed knowledge of military communication procedures and security measures. "Put it through." Then the holographic display materialized into the image of a human figure, bipedal as expected, but possessing an intelligence and confidence that contradicted every assumption about primitive species development. The individual appeared middle-aged by human standards, with features that suggested both intellectual capability and military bearing. "Commander Tekvar Morlane," the human said, using perfect pronunciation of his name and rank. "I am Director Jameson Blackthorne of the Terran Strategic Defense Consortium. We have been monitoring your presence in our system and believe it is time for direct communication." The casual use of his full name and rank, combined with the human's obvious familiarity with Confederation military protocols, confirmed their worst fears about the extent of human intelligence operations. This was not first contact with a primitive species. This was contact with a civilization that possessed detailed intelligence about Confederation personnel and procedures. "Director Blackthorne," Morlane replied, maintaining diplomatic protocols despite his growing unease. I am conducting a routine survey of your system under the authority of the Galactic Confederation Survey Division. With respect, Commander, there is nothing routine about your mission. Your vessel has conducted deep-range scans of our planetary defense systems, analyzed our communication networks, and accessed classified historical archives relating to Sol system quarantine procedures. These are not the activities of a routine survey mission. The humans' knowledge of their specific activities confirmed that humanity had been monitoring their operations in real time since their arrival in the system. More concerning was the casual reference to classified archives, suggesting that human intelligence operations extended into the most secure databases of Confederation command structure. Our mission parameters are classified, Morlane replied. As are ours, Blackthorne responded, with what might have been amusement. However, given the circumstances, I believe both of our civilizations would benefit from more direct communication. May I suggest a meeting? A meeting? Face-to-face communication, Commander. Your cultural liaison protocols indicate that your species responds favorably to direct personal interaction in diplomatic situations. The reference to Confederation cultural liaison protocols provided additional confirmation of the depth of human intelligence gathering. These were internal documents that detailed specific approaches for diplomatic contact with various species, and they were classified at levels that should have prevented access by unauthorized personnel. Where would such a meeting take place? We have prepared facilities on SOL-3 that can accommodate your physiological requirements. Alternatively, we can provide transportation to a neutral location within the system. Transportation? We maintain several vessels capable of interstellar travel, Commander. I'm sure your scans have detected some of them. The casual admission that humanity possessed interstellar travel capabilities while maintaining the appearance of primitive development provided final confirmation that they were dealing with a civilization whose deception had been comprehensive and systematic across multiple centuries. What assurances can you provide for the safety of my crew? The same assurances that we have operated under for the past 8 centuries, Commander. Mutual survival depends on mutual understanding. We have no interest in harming Confederation personnel, just as we assume you have no interest in harming human personnel. And if I decline your invitation, then you are free to leave our system and report your findings to your superiors. However, I believe you understand that the information you have gathered raises questions that can only be answered through direct communication. The diplomatic language masked the reality of their situation. They were operating in space controlled by a civilization that possessed military capabilities sufficient to destroy their vessel if they chose to do so. The invitation to meet was actually a demonstration that humanity possessed the power to dictate terms of engagement while choosing to pursue diplomatic solutions. I will need to consult with my crew and my command structure before making such a decision. Of course, we will maintain this communication channel for as long as necessary. However, Commander, I should mention that time may be a factor. What do you mean? We are not the only parties with an interest in this meeting, Commander. The Galactic Confederation has been less than completely honest about the nature of our relationship over the past several centuries. The implication that Confederation Command had maintained ongoing relations with humanity while concealing their existence from regular military and scientific personnel opened possibilities that made Morlane's command training seem inadequate for the strategic complexities they faced. Are you suggesting that the Confederation has been in communication with your people? I am suggesting, Commander, that the situation you find yourself in is more complex than your mission briefing indicated, and I am suggesting that direct communication will provide answers to questions that you did not know you should be asking. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge crew to contemplate implications that challenged every assumption about their mission, their government, and their understanding of galactic political structures. Analysis, Morlane ordered. They've been in contact with Confederation Command, Vexandra replied immediately. The human's knowledge of our protocols, his casual reference to classified procedures, his awareness of our mission parameters, all of it suggests ongoing communication between humanity and high levels of Confederation authority. For how long? Based on the evidence we've gathered, possibly for centuries, the quarantine of Sol 3 may not have been designed to protect the Confederation from humanity. It may have been designed to protect humanity from the Confederation. Or to protect both civilizations from the political implications of contact, Nalthris added. If humanity possesses technological capabilities that equal or exceed Confederation standards, their integration into galactic society would disrupt power structures that have been stable for millennia. The realization that their discovery of human capabilities might be the result of deliberate revelation rather than successful reconnaissance opened new frameworks for understanding their situation. If humanity had chosen to reveal their true nature after centuries of concealment, then their motivations required careful analysis. Why reveal themselves now? Morlane asked. Because something has changed in the strategic equation, Vexandra replied. Either they have achieved capabilities that make concealment unnecessary, or they have identified threats that make concealment counterproductive. What kind of threats? Unknown. But if humanity has been monitoring Confederation activities for centuries while maintaining intelligence operations throughout our command structure, they may possess information about galactic threats that our own intelligence divisions have not identified. The possibility that humanity's revelation might be motivated by external threats rather than aggressive intentions toward the Confederation provided a different perspective on their diplomatic overtures, but it also raised questions about what kinds of threats might require the combined resources of both civilizations. Commander, Nalthris interrupted, I'm detecting multiple incoming vessels at the edge of the system, Confederation signatures. How many vessels? Preliminary count indicates at least 12 ships, possibly more. The energy signatures are consistent with military vessels rather than scientific or diplomatic craft. The arrival of Confederation military forces transformed their situation from reconnaissance mission to potential military engagement. If the incoming vessels were responding to their intelligence reports, then Command had decided that humanity represented a threat requiring military intervention rather than diplomatic contact. Time to intercept? Approximately 6 standard hours at current velocity. And the human response? Vexandra consulted her tactical displays. Sol 3 defensive systems have increased power output by 300%. I'm detecting massive energy buildups from installations across the outer system. They're preparing for large-scale military engagement. The prospect of military conflict between Confederation forces and human defensive systems opened scenarios that could destabilize multiple sectors of space. If humanity possessed the technological and strategic capabilities that their analysis suggested, then military engagement might result in losses that would fundamentally alter Confederation military capabilities. Options? Morlane asked. We can attempt to withdraw from the system before Confederation forces arrive and avoid involvement in potential military conflict, Vexandra replied. Or we can attempt to establish communication between incoming Confederation forces and human leadership to prevent military engagement. And the risks. If we withdraw, we lose the opportunity to serve as intermediaries in what may be first contact between two civilizations with comparable military capabilities. If we attempt mediation, we risk being caught between opposing forces with superior technological resources. There's a third option, Nalthris added quietly, which is, we accept Director Blackthorn's invitation and attempt to understand the true nature of human capabilities and intentions before Confederation military forces arrive. That would require personal risk that exceeds standard mission protocols. Commander, our entire mission has exceeded standard protocols since we discovered that Sol 3 is not the primitive world that our databases indicated. The analyst's observation highlighted the reality that standard protocols were inadequate for situations involving civilizations with technological capabilities that exceeded initial assessments. Command training prepared officers for contact with primitive species, hostile species, and advanced species within established frameworks, but not for contact with civilizations that had successfully concealed their true nature for centuries. If I go to Sol 3, what are the tactical implications for the ship? Minimal change in our strategic position, Vexandra replied. We're currently operating in space controlled by human defensive systems, and our survival probability in military engagement remains approximately 12%, regardless of command personnel location. And if Confederation forces initiate military action, then understanding human capabilities and intentions becomes critical for survival, not just for us, but for the incoming fleet. The strategic logic was inescapable. Their current position required information that could only be obtained through direct contact with human leadership, and the approaching Confederation forces faced tactical disadvantages that might result in massive losses without better intelligence about human capabilities. Nalthris, establish communication with Director Blackthorn. Inform him that I will accept his invitation for direct meeting, but the time constraints require immediate arrangements. Yes, Commander. Vexandra, prepare contingency plans for emergency extraction and fleet communication procedures. If this goes badly, I want options. Understood, sir. The decision to meet with human leadership represented a departure from standard protocols that reflected the unprecedented nature of their situation. First contact with civilizations possessing unknown capabilities required adaptive approaches that balanced diplomatic opportunity with tactical necessity. Sir, Nalthris reported. Director Blackthorn responds that transportation can be provided immediately. He's transmitting coordinates for a rendezvous point. What kind of transportation? Unknown, Commander. The transmission indicates simply that arrangements have been made for secure transfer. Within the following standard hour, their understanding of human technological capabilities expanded yet again as they observed the approach of a vessel that defied every assumption about primitive species engineering. The craft appeared to utilize propulsion technology that generated no detectable energy signature, while achieving velocity and maneuverability that exceeded Confederation's small craft capabilities. How is that possible? Morlane whispered, as he watched the human vessel perform maneuvers that should have required thrust systems generating massive energy emissions. Gravitic manipulation, Vexandra replied, her tactical systems analyzing movements that challenged fundamental assumptions about space travel physics. They're using controlled gravitational fields for propulsion instead of conventional thrust systems. The technology is theoretical, even in our most advanced research installations. Not theoretical for humanity, apparently. The human vessel approached their ship with precision that suggested automated guidance systems of extraordinary sophistication, matching velocity and trajectory without apparent effort or adjustment periods. As it drew closer, their scanners revealed construction methods and materials that provided additional evidence of technological development that exceeded Confederation standards in multiple engineering disciplines. The hull composition includes elements that don't exist in our periodic tables, Nalthris reported, her voice tight with scientific disbelief. These aren't naturally occurring materials. They've been artificially created through processes that require manipulation of atomic structure at the quantum level. Transmaterial engineering, Vexandra whispered. Our theorists have been working on applications for over 2 centuries without practical results. Their theorists appear to have achieved practical applications while we were still studying the basic principles. Nay, the implications extended far beyond simple technological advancement. Transmaterial engineering required understanding of quantum mechanics, particle physics, and molecular chemistry that represented the convergence of multiple scientific disciplines. The fact that humanity had achieved practical applications suggested research programs that spanned generations and resource allocation that required planetary coordination. "Commander," the communication system announced, "this is Director Blackthorne. Docking procedures are complete. We're prepared to receive you aboard our vessel. Atmospheric composition? Adjusted to accommodate your physiological requirements, sir. We've studied Confederation species biology extensively." The casual admission that humanity possessed detailed knowledge of alien biology provided additional confirmation of intelligence operations that extended into the most sensitive areas of Confederation scientific research. Biological data was classified at levels that should have prevented access by unauthorized personnel, yet the humans spoke of it as routine information. Morlane's transfer to the human vessel revealed technologies that challenged his understanding of space travel engineering. The interior design incorporated materials and construction methods that suggested manufacturing capabilities beyond current Confederation standards. Environmental systems maintained atmospheric composition, gravity, and temperature within precise tolerances, while generating no detectable energy signatures. "Welcome aboard the Terra Obscura, Commander," Director Blackthorne said, as Morlane entered what appeared to be a conference chamber designed for diplomatic meetings. "I trust the environmental conditions are satisfactory?" "More than satisfactory," Morlane replied, noting that the human had somehow achieved perfect atmospheric composition for his species, despite the complexity of alien environmental requirements. "Your technology is impressive. Thank you. We've had considerable time to develop our capabilities." "How long?" "That depends on how you define development, Commander. Our current technological base represents accumulated knowledge spanning approximately 1,200 standard years of concentrated research and development. 1,200 years. We began serious technological development shortly after our first observation of Confederation activities in this sector. We determined that contact was inevitable and that preparation was necessary for survival. The revelation that humanity had been preparing for contact with the Confederation for over a millennium provided context for the sophistication of their capabilities and the depth of their intelligence operation. 12 centuries of focused development, guided by detailed knowledge of Confederation technology and tactics, would explain achievements that seemed impossible for a recently developed civilization. "Your intelligence operations have been comprehensive. Survival required comprehensive understanding of potential threats," Blackthorne replied with matter-of-fact precision. The Confederation's expansion patterns and territorial acquisition methods suggested that contact would eventually result in either integration or conflict. We chose to prepare for both possibilities. "And your conclusion?" "That integration, under current Confederation political structures, would be unacceptable to both civilizations, and that conflict would be destructive to galactic stability. What alternative do you propose?" "Mutual recognition, Commander. Acknowledgement that humanity and the Confederation represent independent civilizations with comparable capabilities and legitimate territorial claims." The diplomatic language masked revolutionary implications for galactic political structures. Recognition of humanity as an independent civilization with territorial claims would require fundamental changes in Confederation authority and expansion policies that had been stable for millennia. The Confederation has never recognized territorial claims by civilizations that have not achieved formal membership in galactic political structures, which is precisely the problem we face, Commander. Confederation membership requires acceptance of political subordination to existing member civilizations. Humanity will not accept subordinate status to species whose technological and strategic capabilities We have exceeded. You claim technological superiority. I claim technological independence, which in galactic political terms amounts to the same thing. We possess capabilities that make Confederation authority unenforceable within our territory, and we possess resources that make economic coercion ineffective. The assertion that humanity possessed capabilities sufficient to resist Confederation authority represented a challenge to fundamental assumptions about galactic power structures. No civilization in recorded history had achieved technological independence while maintaining political isolation from established galactic society. What evidence can you provide to support these claims? The same evidence that your reconnaissance mission has been gathering for the past several standard hours, Commander. The evidence that demonstrates we have achieved technological capabilities that equal or exceed Confederation standards in multiple critical areas. And if the Confederation chooses not to recognize your claims, then the Confederation will discover that military solutions to political problems are less effective when applied to civilizations that possess comparable strategic capabilities. The diplomatic language concealed what amounted to a declaration that humanity was prepared for military conflict with the Confederation if diplomatic recognition was not forthcoming. The calm manner in which Blackthorn delivered this information suggested confidence in human military capabilities that exceeded mere bluffing or psychological intimidation. I have incoming military vessels from Confederation Command, Morlane informed him. Their intentions may not be diplomatic. We are aware of the approaching fleet, Commander. We have been monitoring their progress since they departed Sector Command approximately 18 standard hours ago. You've been monitoring Confederation fleet movements? We monitor all activities within a sphere of approximately 40 light-years from Sol system, Commander. Anything closer than that represents potential threats that require assessment and response planning. The admission that humanity possessed sensor capabilities that extended across multiple star systems provided evidence of technological achievements that placed them among the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. Interstellar sensor networks required resources and coordination that exceeded the capabilities of most established species. The approaching fleet includes vessels with significant military capabilities. Yes, 3 Dreadnought-class battleships, 6 heavy cruisers, and several support vessels. Approximately 12,000 personnel under the command of Admiral Vex Thara Quellon. The casual recitation of specific fleet composition and command structure confirmed that human intelligence operations included real-time monitoring of Confederation military activities. This level of detailed information should have been available only to personnel with the highest security clearances. How do you know Admiral Quellon's identity? Admiral Quellon has commanded Sector Defense Fleet designation Alpha 7 for the past 6 standard years. Her tactical preferences favor coordinated assault formations, with emphasis on overwhelming firepower application. Her strategic planning typically includes contingencies for extended engagement scenarios, but lacks flexibility for asymmetric warfare applications. The detailed analysis of Confederation Command personnel demonstrated intelligence gathering that extended far beyond simple observation into comprehensive evaluation of individual capabilities and tactical preferences. This suggested infiltration of Confederation command structures at levels that would provide access to personnel files and strategic planning documents. You have agents within Confederation Command. We have information sources that provide necessary intelligence for strategic planning purposes, Blackthorn replied, without directly confirming or denying infiltration operations. The nature of these sources is classified, but their effectiveness is evident. No, and Admiral Quellon's mission. According to intercepted communications, the Admiral has been ordered to establish Confederation authority over Sol system and to neutralize any threats to galactic security that may have developed during the quarantine period. Meaning, meaning that Confederation Command has decided that humanity represents a threat requiring military intervention rather than diplomatic contact. The revelation that Confederation Command had authorized military action against Sol System confirmed that their reconnaissance mission had been part of a broader strategic plan that included potential military engagement. This suggested that high levels of command authority possessed information about human capabilities that had not been shared with survey personnel. Why would command authorize military intervention? Because someone in Confederation authority has decided that humanity's continued independence represents an unacceptable challenge to established galactic political structures. And your response? Our response will depend on Admiral Quellon's intentions when her fleet arrives, Commander. If she comes seeking diplomatic contact, we are prepared for negotiation. If she comes seeking military confrontation, we are prepared for that as well. The calm manner in which Blackthorn discussed potential military conflict with a Confederation fleet suggested confidence that extended beyond mere defensive capabilities. This implied that humanity possessed strategic resources and tactical advantages that could challenge Confederation military superiority in direct engagement. You believe you can defeat a Confederation battle fleet. I believe that military conflict between our civilizations would be destructive to both sides and destabilizing to galactic society in general. However, if conflict becomes necessary, humanity will not accept defeat or subordination. What capabilities do you possess that give you confidence in military engagement with superior numbers? The same capabilities that have allowed us to maintain independence and concealment for 12 centuries while operating intelligence networks throughout Confederation space, Commander. The capabilities that your reconnaissance mission has been documenting since your arrival in our system. Technological superiority, technological independence, strategic preparation, and comprehensive understanding of Confederation military doctrine and capabilities. These advantages tend to be decisive in asymmetric conflict scenarios. The discussion revealed that humanity's approach to potential military conflict was based not on superior technology alone, but on strategic advantages gained through centuries of intelligence gathering and tactical preparation. This suggested a level of military planning that exceeded standard defensive preparation and approached comprehensive war planning. There may be alternatives to military conflict. We are always interested in alternatives, Commander. What do you suggest? Direct communication between your leadership and Admiral Quellon. If both sides understand the capabilities and intentions involved, diplomatic solutions may be possible. We are prepared for direct communication, but previous experience suggests that Confederation military commanders tend to interpret diplomatic overtures as evidence of weakness rather than strength. Not if they understand the true nature of your capabilities. Understanding our capabilities may actually increase the likelihood of military conflict, Commander. Confederation military doctrine does not include procedures for negotiating with civilizations that possess comparable strategic resources. The observation highlighted a fundamental problem in galactic political structures. Confederation authority was based on technological and military superiority that made negotiation with independent civilizations unnecessary. Recognition of humanity as an equal would require acknowledgement that Confederation dominance was not universal, which carried implications that extended far beyond simple territorial disputes. Then what do you propose? Demonstration, Commander. Sometimes understanding requires evidence that cannot be dismissed or misinterpreted. What kind of demonstration? The kind that makes our capabilities clear without causing unnecessary destruction or loss of life. Before Morlane could respond, the communication system activated with an incoming transmission from the ethereal dominance. Vexandra's voice carried urgency that indicated immediate tactical concerns. Commander, Admiral Quellon's fleet has accelerated approach velocity and is now deploying in standard assault formation. Estimated arrival time is now 4 standard hours. Acknowledged, Morlane replied. Continue monitoring and prepare for immediate extraction if necessary. Sir, there's something else. We're detecting massive energy buildups throughout the Sol system. The signatures indicate weapons systems charging to combat readiness on a scale that exceeds anything in our tactical databases. Blackthorn listened to the transmission without apparent concern, as if massive weapons deployment was a routine response to approaching military forces. His calm demeanor suggested that humanity's defensive preparations were comprehensive, and that they possessed confidence in their ability to engage Confederation forces successfully. How many weapons systems? Morlane asked. Current count exceeds 3,000 separate installations, Commander. Energy output levels suggest capabilities ranging from planetary defense to capital ship engagement at interstellar ranges. 3,000 weapons installations that we can detect with our current scanning capabilities, Vexandra corrected. Actual numbers may be significantly higher. The scale of human military preparation defied every assumption about planetary defense capabilities. 3,000 weapons installations represented resource allocation and coordination that exceeded the defensive preparations of most star systems within Confederation territory. Director Blackthorn, Morlane said, this level of military preparation suggests something more than defensive planning. You are correct, Commander. This level of preparation represents strategic planning for scenarios that extend beyond simple defense of Sol system. What scenarios? Scenarios in which Confederation military forces attempt to establish authority over territory that humanity considers sovereign. Scenarios in which diplomatic recognition is refused and military coercion is attempted. Scenarios in which our independence requires demonstration rather than negotiation. The implication that humanity had prepared for offensive military operations against Confederation territory represented an escalation of threat assessment that transformed their situation from potential diplomatic contact to imminent military crisis. You are planning military action against Confederation territory? We are prepared for military action if peaceful recognition of our sovereignty is not forthcoming. The distinction may seem academic, Commander, but it represents the difference between aggression and self-defense. Military action against Confederation territory would be interpreted as an act of war. Military action against human territory will be interpreted the same way. Indeed, the exchange highlighted the fundamental incompatibility between Confederation authority and human independence. Neither civilization appeared willing to accept subordinate status, and both possessed military capabilities that could make conflict destructive to galactic stability. There must be alternatives to military conflict. There are, Commander. Recognition of humanity as an independent civilization with legitimate territorial claims. Establishment of formal diplomatic relations based on mutual sovereignty rather than Confederation authority. Negotiation of boundaries and responsibilities that acknowledge our respective capabilities and interests. The Confederation has never negotiated with civilizations outside established political structures. Then perhaps it is time for the Confederation to adapt its policies to accommodate new realities. The suggestion that Confederation political structures required fundamental changes to accommodate human independence carried implications that extended far beyond simple diplomatic recognition. Acknowledgement of humanity as an equal would establish precedents that could encourage other civilizations to challenge Confederation authority and destabilize the political foundations of galactic society. Such changes would require approval from the highest levels of Confederation government, which is why we have prepared for scenarios in which such approval is not forthcoming. Military scenarios. Survival scenarios, Commander. Humanity will not accept subordination or integration under terms that compromise our independence or our security. The absolute nature of Blackthorn's statement suggested that humanity had made irreversible decisions about their relationship with the Confederation. This implied strategic planning that extended beyond defensive preparation into comprehensive preparation for large-scale military conflict. "Commander!" Vexandra's voice interrupted through the communication system. "Admiral Quellon is requesting immediate communication with you. She indicates that your presence on the human vessel constitutes a security breach requiring immediate resolution. Patch the communication through." Nason, the holographic display materialized into the image of Admiral Vexthara Quellon, a Kitharan military officer whose tactical reputation was legendary throughout Confederation space. Her compound eyes reflected the cold precision that had made her one of the most effective combat commanders in Confederation history. "Commander Morlane," she said without preamble, "you will return to your vessel immediately. Your current situation represents a security compromise that cannot be tolerated." "Admiral, I'm conducting authorized diplomatic contact under emergency protocols. There are no emergency protocols for contact with hostile civilizations that possess unknown capabilities, Commander. Return to your vessel and prepare for fleet coordination procedures." "With respect, Admiral, the situation here is more complex than initial assessments indicated. The situation here is exactly what our intelligence reports suggested it would be. Sol 3 represents a Class 15 threat that requires immediate military resolution." The casual reference to Class 15 threat classification confirmed that Admiral Quellon possessed detailed information about human capabilities that exceeded what had been provided to survey personnel. This suggested that reconnaissance missions had been conducted with incomplete information while Command Authority planned military intervention. "You knew about human capabilities before my mission began. We knew enough to understand that military intervention would eventually be necessary. Your mission was designed to confirm threat assessments and provide tactical intelligence for fleet operations. The revelation that their survey mission had been part of military preparation rather than scientific reconnaissance transformed Morlane's understanding of his orders and his responsibilities. If Command had been planning military action while concealing information from field personnel, then standard protocols were inadequate for the ethical and strategic complexities they faced. "Director Blackthorn," Admiral Quellon continued, addressing the human directly, "you will surrender all personnel under your control and prepare for Confederation occupation of Sol system. Resistance will be met with overwhelming force." "Admiral Quellon," Blackthorn replied with the same calm precision he had maintained throughout their meeting, "humanity does not recognize Confederation authority over Sol system or any territory under human control. Your demands are unacceptable, and your threats will be met with appropriate response. You are in no position to make threats against Confederation military forces. I am in exactly the position necessary to defend human sovereignty against unprovoked military aggression. Your fleet represents 12,000 personnel operating 12 vessels against a civilization that has been preparing for this confrontation for over a millennium. I suggest you reconsider your tactical assumptions." The exchange between Admiral Quellon and Director Blackthorn highlighted the fundamental incompatibility between their respective positions. Neither commander appeared willing to compromise, and both possessed military resources that could make conflict devastatingly destructive. "Admiral," Morlane interrupted, "I recommend immediate consultation with Confederation High Command before initiating military action. The intelligence I have gathered suggests that standard tactical assumptions may not apply to this situation." "Commander, your intelligence gathering has been compromised by extended exposure to hostile manipulation. Your assessments cannot be considered reliable." "My assessments are based on direct observation of capabilities that exceed current threat classifications. Your assessments are irrelevant. We have authorization for military action regardless of local tactical conditions. The admission that Admiral Quellon possessed authorization for military action that superseded field intelligence represented a fundamental violation of Confederation military doctrine. Standard protocols required tactical assessment and strategic consultation before engaging civilizations with unknown capabilities. Authorization from whom? From authority levels that do not require explanation to field personnel. The evasive response suggested that military authorization had been obtained through channels that bypassed normal command structures. This implied political decision-making that exceeded standard military authority and indicated involvement by civilian leadership at the highest levels of Confederation government. Admiral, Blackthorne interrupted, before you commit your personnel to military action, you should understand exactly what kind of opposition you face. We understand that you represent a primitive civilization with limited defensive capabilities. You understand incorrectly. What happened next would be remembered in military academies throughout Confederation space as the moment when assumptions about technological superiority and strategic dominance were permanently shattered. Director Blackthorne activated what appeared to be a simple control interface on the conference table. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Every sensor on Admiral Quellon's fleet registered simultaneous target acquisition by weapon systems that exceeded their understanding of physics and engineering. Admiral, Blackthorne said quietly, your vessels are currently being tracked by approximately 4,000 separate weapons installations throughout Sol system. Each installation possesses the capability to engage your fleet at your current position, with weapons that generate energy output equivalent to stellar fusion processes. The silence on the communication channel lasted several seconds as Admiral Quellon's tactical staff processed information that challenged every assumption about human military capabilities. That's impossible, she finally whispered. No, Admiral. That's 12 centuries of technological development guided by comprehensive intelligence about Confederation military capabilities and strategic doctrine. No civilization develops that level of technology in isolation. No isolated civilization develops that level of technology, Blackthorne corrected. But we have not been isolated. We have been observing, learning, and preparing while maintaining the illusion of primitive development. You've been infiltrating Confederation space. We've been gathering intelligence necessary for survival, just as any rational civilization would do when facing potential contact with a more numerous and apparently more advanced species. The admission confirmed what intelligence analysis had suggested. Humanity possessed the capability for interstellar travel and had been conducting operations throughout Confederation space while maintaining complete concealment from security agencies. For how long? Long enough to understand Confederation military doctrine, technological capabilities, political structures, and strategic weaknesses. Long enough to prepare effective countermeasures for any military action you might choose to undertake. You're threatening Confederation military forces. I'm informing you of tactical realities that affect your decision-making, Admiral. Humanity possesses defensive capabilities that make military conquest of Sol system impossible within acceptable casualty parameters. Define acceptable casualty parameters. 0% survival probability for attacking forces, Admiral. Our defensive systems are designed to ensure that military aggression against human territory results in complete destruction of hostile fleets. The clinical precision with which Blackthorne delivered this information suggested that humanity's defensive planning included scenarios for total destruction of Confederation military forces without regard for diplomatic consequences or escalation potential. You would destroy an entire Confederation fleet. We would defend our territory against unprovoked military aggression using whatever level of force proves necessary for effective defense. That would constitute an act of war against the Galactic Confederation. Military invasion of Sol system would constitute an act of war against humanity. We are prepared to respond appropriately. The exchange had escalated beyond diplomatic posturing into direct military confrontation. Both commanders possessed the authority and capability to initiate conflict that could destabilize multiple sectors of space and challenge the fundamental structures of galactic political authority. "Admiral," Morlane interrupted, "perhaps we should consider alternatives to military engagement." "There are no alternatives, Commander. Confederation authority cannot be challenged by primitive civilizations, regardless of their temporary technological advantages." Temporary. Any advantages they possess are the result of intelligence gathering and technological theft, rather than independent development. These advantages can be countered through appropriate military response. Admiral," Blackthorne said, his voice carrying undertones that suggested considerable restraint, "you continue to operate under assumptions that are not supported by available evidence. Perhaps a demonstration would be more persuasive than diplomatic explanation." "What kind of demonstration?" "Observe your tactical displays, Admiral." What appeared on the fleet's sensors defied every principle of known physics. Massive structures began materializing throughout the outer Sol system, structures that had been concealed using technology that rendered them invisible to Confederation scanning capabilities until they chose to reveal themselves. "Impossible," Admiral Quellon whispered, as her tactical staff reported contact signatures that exceeded the largest installations in Confederation space. "Military installations, Admiral. Each one capable of independent operations against capital ships at interstellar ranges. Each one representing technological capabilities that your civilization has not yet achieved." The structures revealed themselves to be not simple weapons platforms, but comprehensive military bases that could house entire fleets while manufacturing additional military resources. The scale of construction required resources and coordination that exceeded the capabilities of most star systems within Confederation territory. "How many installations?" "Currently active installations number in the hundreds, Admiral. Total defensive capability includes resources distributed throughout multiple star systems within human territory." "Multiple star systems." "Humanity controls territory that extends across 17 star systems, Admiral. Sol is our political center, but not our only population or industrial base. The revelation that humanity possessed not just Sol system, but an entire network of star systems represented a fundamental challenge to Confederation territorial assumptions and expansion policies. If humans controlled 17 star systems while maintaining complete concealment from Confederation authorities, then existing intelligence capabilities and territorial surveys were completely inadequate. That's impossible. Confederation surveys have mapped every system within 50 light-years of Sol. Confederation surveys have mapped every system that we chose to allow you to discover. The systems under human control utilize concealment technology that renders them invisible to your scanning capabilities unless we choose to reveal them. Concealment technology. Gravitational field manipulation that creates sensor shadows, Admiral. Space-time distortion that makes star systems appear uninhabitable to external observation while maintaining normal conditions for inhabitants. The technological implications were staggering. Gravitational manipulation on the scale required to conceal entire star systems represented capabilities that exceeded theoretical physics research at the most advanced Confederation institutions. You're claiming technological capabilities that are impossible according to established physics. We're demonstrating technological capabilities that your physics have not yet achieved, Admiral. There is a significant difference. This changes nothing. Confederation authority extends over all inhabited space regardless of local technological development. And human authority extends over territory that we control regardless of Confederation claims to universal dominance. None. The fundamental incompatibility between Confederation territorial policies and human independence had reached the point where diplomatic resolution appeared impossible. Both civilizations possessed the military capabilities and strategic determination to resist subordination, which meant that conflict was becoming inevitable unless one side chose to compromise positions that appeared non-negotiable. "Director Blackthorne," Morlane said, "is there any diplomatic solution that would be acceptable to humanity? Recognition of human sovereignty over territory under our control, establishment of formal diplomatic relations based on mutual independence, and acknowledgement that Confederation authority does not extend over civilizations that possess comparable strategic capabilities. And if the Confederation refuses these terms, then humanity will demonstrate that territorial expansion through military conquest is not effective against civilizations that possess adequate defensive resources and comprehensive intelligence about the capabilities and intentions of potential aggressors. You would initiate military action against Confederation territory. We would respond to military aggression with appropriate force levels and strategic objectives necessary to ensure that such aggression does not recur. The implication that humanity possessed not only defensive capabilities, but offensive military resources sufficient to threaten Confederation territory represented an escalation of threat assessment that transformed their situation from local conflict to potential galactic war. "Admiral Quellon," Blackthorne continued, "your tactical situation is untenable. Your fleet represents significant military resources, but it is operating within space, controlled by defensive systems that exceed your offensive capabilities. I suggest immediate consultation with your superiors before taking actions that cannot be reversed. My orders are clear. Establish Confederation authority over Sol system by any means necessary. Then, your orders require you to engage in military action that will result in the complete destruction of your command, if necessary." The absolute nature of Admiral Quellon's response suggested that Confederation command had made strategic decisions that prioritized political authority over military practicality. This implied that civilian leadership considered the challenge to Confederation dominance more threatening than the potential loss of military resources. "Admiral," Morlane interrupted, "request immediate consultation with High Command. The strategic implications of this situation exceed the scope of military action against a single planet. Commander, you are relieved of duty. Report to your vessel immediately for detention and transportation to appropriate authority." "On what charges?" "Collaboration with hostile forces and compromise of security protocols." The formal relief of command confirmed that Admiral Quellon considered the situation beyond diplomatic resolution and was prepared to proceed with military action regardless of tactical disadvantages or strategic consequences. "Director Blackthorne," Morlane said, "I believe I should return to my vessel." "Of course, Commander. I appreciate your willingness to pursue diplomatic alternatives despite the apparent futility of such efforts. This isn't over." "No, Commander. I suspect this is just beginning." The return to the ethereal dominance provided Morlane with time to process the implications of everything he had learned during his meeting with Director Blackthorne. Humanity represented not just an advanced civilization, but a strategic threat to Confederation authority that extended far beyond territorial disputes. Their technological capabilities, intelligence operations, and military preparations suggested planning for large-scale conflict that could challenge Confederation dominance throughout multiple sectors of space. More disturbing was the evidence that Confederation command possessed detailed intelligence about human capabilities while concealing this information from field personnel. The authorization for military action, despite clear tactical disadvantages, suggested political decision-making that prioritized authority over practical considerations. "Commander," Vexandra reported as he returned to the bridge, Admiral Quellon has ordered all fleet vessels to assume combat formation and prepare for planetary assault. Time to engagement. Approximately 2 standard hours, sir. And human response? Massive energy build-ups throughout the system. They appear to be charging weapon systems to maximum power levels. The prospect of military engagement between Confederation forces and human defensive systems represented a scenario that could fundamentally alter the balance of power in galactic society. If humanity possessed the capabilities that Director Blackthorne had demonstrated, then Admiral Quellon's fleet faced destruction that would represent the most significant military defeat in Confederation history. Options? Tactically, we can attempt to withdraw from the engagement zone before combat begins. Strategically, we can attempt to convince Admiral Quellon that military action represents an unacceptable risk to Confederation interests. And diplomatically, we can attempt to serve as intermediaries between human and Confederation leadership to negotiate alternatives to military conflict. Effectiveness of each option? Withdrawal ensures our survival, but provides no solution to the larger strategic problem. Tactical consultation with Admiral Quellon is unlikely to succeed, given her apparent authorization for military action regardless of local conditions. Diplomatic mediation requires cooperation from both sides that may not be forthcoming. The analysis confirmed what Morlane had suspected. Their options were limited by decisions that had been made at authority levels beyond their control. Confederation Command had apparently decided that military action was necessary regardless of tactical considerations, while humanity had prepared for conflict that could make such action devastatingly costly. "Sir," Nalthris interrupted, "I'm detecting incoming transmission from human sources. It's directed to all Confederation vessels simultaneously. Put it through." The main display activated to show Director Blackthorne addressing what appeared to be a much larger audience than their previous meeting. The background suggested a command center that coordinated resources across multiple star systems. "Admiral Quellon, commanders of Confederation forces currently operating in Sol System," he began. "Humanity offers one final opportunity for diplomatic resolution of the current situation." "I'm listening," Admiral Quellon's voice responded through fleet communication channels. "Immediate withdrawal of all Confederation military forces from human territory, acknowledgement of human sovereignty over systems under our control, and establishment of formal diplomatic contact through neutral intermediaries." Unacceptable. The Confederation does not negotiate with primitive civilizations. Then the Confederation will discover that military solutions are less effective when applied to civilizations that possess comparable strategic capabilities. Proceed with your threats. Admiral, you command 12 vessels with approximately 12,000 personnel. You are operating within space controlled by defensive systems that number in the thousands and possess capabilities that exceed anything in your tactical experience. Your vessels are outnumbered, outgunned, and operating within range of weapons that can destroy capital ships at interstellar distances. We are prepared for casualties. Are you prepared for total casualties, Admiral? Because that is what military engagement with human defensive forces will produce. The clinical precision with which Blackthorne described potential casualties suggested that humanity's defensive planning included scenarios for complete destruction of attacking forces without consideration for diplomatic consequences or escalation potential. Total casualties, 0% survival probability for Confederation forces that attempt military action against human territory. Our defensive systems are designed to ensure that aggression against our civilization is not repeated. You would commit genocide against Confederation personnel. We would defend our territory using whatever level of force proves necessary for effective defense. The level of casualties depends entirely on the level of aggression employed against us. The exchange highlighted the fundamental problem. Both civilizations possessed military capabilities that could make conflict devastatingly destructive, but neither appeared willing to compromise strategic positions that they considered essential to survival. "Last chance, Admiral," Blackthorne continued. "Withdraw your forces and request diplomatic contact through appropriate channels. Continue military operations and accept responsibility for the consequences." The Galactic Confederation does not retreat from primitive civilizations. Then, the Galactic Confederation will learn that some civilizations are not as primitive as they appear. The transmission ended, leaving Admiral Quellen's fleet to face tactical realities that contradicted every assumption about human capabilities and Confederation military superiority. Within the following standard hours, the confrontation would either result in diplomatic breakthrough or military disaster that could destabilize the fundamental structures of galactic political authority. What happened next would demonstrate that 12 centuries of preparation, guided by comprehensive intelligence about potential enemies, could transform supposedly primitive civilizations into strategic threats that challenged the most advanced military forces in the galaxy. As Confederation forces moved into assault formation, human defensive systems activated capabilities that redefined the boundaries of possible technology and forever changed the balance of power between civilizations that had assumed their dominance was permanent. The war that followed lasted exactly 47 minutes and ended with the complete restructuring of galactic political authority under terms that humanity had been preparing to impose for over a millennium.